In a quiet town in Ohio, Emily, a 19-year-old young woman, struggled to navigate the crowded streets in her wheelchair. Life hadn't been kind to her after the car accident that had left her paralyzed from the waist down. Every movement, every small errand she tried to run felt like a mountain to climb. That morning, the sun had barely risen, but Emily had determined to go to the local art supply store to pick up some materials for her sketches. She loved to draw. It was the one thing that gave her a sense of freedom, a way to escape the confines of her disability. Her wheelchair had seen better days, with worn-out wheels and squeaky bearings, but it had always gotten her where she needed to go. Until today. As she attempted to cross the intersection near the main street, she felt a sudden wobble. One of the wheels had caught on a small crack in the pavement, and the entire chair lurched dangerously to the side. Panic surged through her as she tried to stabilize herself, but it was no use. The chair tipped slightly, leaving her momentarily stuck and exposed. Cars honked as drivers rushed past, some slowing just slightly, but none stopping. Emily felt a wave of helplessness wash over her. Tears welled up in her eyes as she realized she was stranded, unable to move forward or backward without risking a fall. It was at that moment that John appeared. He was a young mechanic in his mid-20s, wearing a grease-stained jacket and carrying a small toolbox. His hands were rough from years of labor, and his face bore the signs of exhaustion, but his eyes were sharp and observant. He'd been driving home from his job at a nearby repair shop when he noticed Emily, struggling. Without a second thought, he pulled his old truck to the side of the road and ran toward her. "Are you okay?" he called out, his voice carrying concern and urgency. Emily looked up, startled, and nodded shakily. "My wheelchair! It's broken," she managed to say, her voice trembling. John knelt beside her, examining the wheelchair. He could see immediately what the problem was, a loose wheel axle and a bent frame. He knew he could fix it, but it wouldn't be quick. Still, he didn't hesitate. "Don't worry, I'll fix it for you," he said with quiet determination. Emily wanted to protest, worried that she would be imposing on a stranger. But something about John's presence made her trust him. There was no hint of condescension, no impatience, just genuine care. He set down his toolbox on the curb and began working meticulously, checking every bolt and wheel, using spare parts he had in the truck just in case. As he worked, Emily watched him in awe. His hands moved skillfully, almost effortlessly, tightening screws, adjusting the frame and replacing worn-out components. She noticed the dirt under his nails, the sweat glistening on his forehead, and the tiredness in his eyes, yet he didn't slow down. Every movement was precise, purposeful, and kind. She tried to make conversation, hoping to ease the awkwardness of being helped by a stranger. Do you do this often?" she asked quietly. John smiled faintly. "I fix whatever I can, sometimes cars, sometimes bikes, sometimes people's problems." Emily chuckled softly, feeling a warmth in her chest she hadn't felt in a long time. People passing by stopped to watch. Some whispered, some took out their phones to record the scene, curious about the young mechanic helping a girl in a wheelchair. But John paid them no mind. He was entirely focused on the task at hand. He explained each step to Emily as he worked, making sure she understood what he was doing and why. "This wheel was about to give way completely," he said, pointing to the bent axle. "If you had moved forward, it could have collapsed entirely." Emily shivered at the thought, feeling grateful that he had been there at just the right moment. She realized how fragile her independence could be, and how a kind stranger could make all the difference. While John continued repairing the wheelchair, Emily shared her story. She told him about her accident, the endless hospital visits, and the struggle to regain a sense of normalcy. She spoke about her love for art, her desire to attend college, and the frustrations of living in a town where accessibility was limited. John listened patiently, nodding occasionally, but mostly letting her speak. He felt a connection forming, a sense of responsibility beyond just fixing a wheelchair. He wanted to make sure she could move safely again, but he also wanted to remind her that she wasn't alone. After an hour of careful work, John finally stepped back. The wheelchair was repaired, sturdier than it had been before, with wheels perfectly aligned and the frame reinforced. Emily hesitated for a moment before rolling forward, testing the movement. The chair glided smoothly over the pavement, and her face lit up with a smile that could rival the sun. "I can move," she exclaimed, her voice filled with relief and joy. John's heart swelled at the sight. He wiped his hands on a rag, trying to clean off the grease, but he didn't mind. The reward of seeing Emily regain her mobility was worth every bit of effort. Emily tried to thank him, but John waved her off. "Helping someone shouldn't come with a price," he said simply. She smiled, touched by his humility and kindness. Little did they know, this simple act of stopping to help a stranger would ripple far beyond the streets of Ohio. A small act of compassion, born from a young mechanic's determination, had already begun to change the course of Emily's life, and perhaps even his own. After John finished repairing the wheelchair, Emily rolled forward slowly, testing every movement. With careful attention, the wheels glided smoothly, and the chair felt more stable than it had in years. Relief washed over her, mixed with a surge of emotion she struggled to control. Thank you so much," she whispered, her eyes glistening. John shrugged, trying to hide his pride, though a small smile tugged at his lips. "It's nothing, really, just be careful, all right?" he replied. She nodded, feeling a newfound sense of freedom. In that moment, the busy streets and passing cars faded into the background, leaving just the two of them in a bubble of quiet accomplishment and connection. Emily paused for a moment, catching her breath, and then decided to tell John more about herself. She spoke of her dreams of moving to New York for college, studying art, and creating murals that could inspire others. She shared her fears, the struggles of being paralyzed, the frustrations of navigating a world built for those who could walk. John listened intently, fascinated by her courage and determination. He could see the fire in her eyes, the passion for life that refused to be dimmed by circumstance. It struck him how someone so young and vulnerable could remain so strong and hopeful. As they continued talking, Emily noticed John's worn-out clothes and the dirt under his fingernails. She asked him about his life, curious about the young mechanic who had appeared out of nowhere to help her. John laughed lightly, rubbing the back of his neck. He explained how he had grown up in a modest household, working at the repair shop since he was a teenager. Money had always been tight, but he had learned to fix anything, cars, bikes, even broken furniture. Helping Emily, he said, was just another part of life. "We all need a hand sometimes," he added. Emily admired his humility and felt a deep respect for him. The sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the street. Passers-by occasionally glanced at the pair, some nodding approvingly at John's actions. A few people even took pictures discreetly, inspired by the kindness of the young mechanic. Emily felt a mixture of gratitude and embarrassment. She wasn't used to so much attention, but she also understood the significance of the moment. John, unaware of the growing audience, continued speaking softly about the importance of helping others and treating people with compassion. His words resonated with Emily, reinforcing the idea that acts of kindness, no matter how small, could ripple outward and change lives. Once the wheelchair was fully functional, Emily started moving more confidently down the sidewalk. She had been confined for so long that every turn of the wheels felt liberating. John followed closely, ensuring she didn't encounter any obstacles or cracks in the pavement. She laughed lightly as she maneuvered around a lamppost, a sound that felt bright and joyous. "You've done more than just fix my wheelchair," she said, looking at him seriously. "You've given me a sense of freedom again." John shook his head, modestly refusing the praise, but inside he felt an undeniable warmth, a rare satisfaction that came from truly helping someone in need. As they reached the corner near her home, Emily invited John in for a cup of tea. He hesitated, explaining that he had a long day of work and responsibilities waiting, but her insistence and gentle demeanor persuaded him to accept. Inside her modest apartment, she offered him a simple cup of tea, and they continued talking about dreams, struggles, and the unexpected turns life could take. Emily's walls, once filled with sadness and frustration, seemed lighter as she spoke with John. He listened with genuine interest, offering encouragement and advice without judgment, creating a connection that felt both comforting and rare. During their conversation, Emily mentioned how difficult it had been to navigate her life as a disabled young woman. The streets were uneven, public transport was unreliable, and accessibility was often overlooked. John nodded empathetically, expressing frustration at how society often failed to consider those with disabilities. "You shouldn't have to fight this hard just to live your life," he said softly. Emily smiled, feeling seen and understood. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of hope that extended beyond the repaired wheelchair. Maybe life could offer more than struggle and isolation. Maybe there were people willing to make a difference, one small act at a time. Word of John's kindness spread quickly through the town. A local news reporter had noticed the scene from a distance and approached them for an interview. Emily, initially shy, agreed, wanting to highlight the impact of small acts of compassion. John, hesitant at first, eventually participated, explaining how he believed in helping anyone in need. The story was aired on the local news, showing footage of John repairing the wheelchair and Emily moving freely for the first time in weeks. The community responded with admiration, sharing the story on social media, praising John's selflessness and celebrating Emily's resilience. The experience left Emily feeling inspired and energized. She realized that despite her physical limitations, life still held opportunities and moments of joy. John, meanwhile, felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had always believed in hard work and helping others, but seeing the tangible impact of his actions in Emily's life had given him something deeper, a profound sense of fulfillment. As the sun set over Ohio that evening, Emily and John parted ways, both carrying a sense of hope, possibility, and the knowledge that even a brief encounter could change the trajectory of a life forever. After the news story aired, Emily's life began to change in ways she hadn't expected. Donations and messages poured in from people across Ohio and even other states, inspired by her courage and the mechanic's kindness. Some offered financial help, others offered support with mobility aids or scholarships for her college aspirations. Emily felt overwhelmed, but deeply grateful. For the first time since her accident, she sensed that the world was noticing her, not for her disability, but for her determination and spirit. She realized that John's simple act had opened doors that she had long thought closed, and her dreams no longer felt unreachable. John, too, noticed a shift in his life. The small repair shop he had operated on a shoestring budget was suddenly attracting more customers. People admired his skills, but more than that, they admired his integrity and generosity. Word of mouth brought clients from neighboring towns, all curious to meet the young mechanic who had helped a stranger without expecting anything in return. John's reputation as a skilled and compassionate individual grew, and he found himself busier than ever. Despite the increase in work, he remained humble, remembering why he had started helping Emily in the first place, simply because it was the right thing to do. Emily soon received invitations from several colleges, each offering her a scholarship to pursue art. She was stunned. She hadn't anticipated such a response. Her talent, combined with her story of resilience and courage, had captured the attention of professors and philanthropists alike. She began planning her move to New York, feeling both excitement and nervousness. The thought of leaving Ohio, her family, and John behind was bittersweet, but she knew it was a necessary step toward achieving her dreams. She promised herself that she would carry John's kindness with her, ensuring that every step she took forward would honor the support he had given her. Before leaving for New York, Emily visited John one last time. His shop had transformed since the day he repaired her wheelchair: new tools, cleaner workspaces, and a small mural painted on the wall depicting a wheelchair surrounded by flowers. Emily smiled, touched by the gesture. "You didn't just fix my wheelchair, John. You fixed a part of my life too," she said softly. John chuckled, trying to downplay his role. "I just did what I could," he replied, but Emily could see the impact he had made, not just on her life, but on the community. He had become a symbol of selflessness and hope, a reminder that one person's action could ignite change. The morning of her departure, Emily carefully maneuvered her wheelchair through the airport. John had come to see her off, carrying a small gift, a sketchbook with blank pages, encouraging her to fill them with her dreams and experiences. "Keep creating," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Emily hugged him tightly, feeling an unexpected heaviness in her chest. "I will, and I'll never forget what you did for me," she whispered. As she rolled toward the gate, she looked back at John one last time, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The moment was bittersweet, filled with hope for the future and the warmth of a bond that had formed in the most unexpected circumstances. Once she arrived in New York, Emily's life took on a whirlwind of activity. Classes, workshops, and exhibitions filled her schedule, but she never forgot her roots. She shared her story publicly, highlighting John's role in her journey. Social media amplified the narrative, reaching thousands of people who were inspired by her courage and John's selflessness. People from all over the country reached out, offering advice, encouragement, and even opportunities for collaborative art projects. Emily realized that the world was far more connected than she had imagined, and that acts of kindness, even small ones, could resonate far beyond their initial moment. Back in Ohio, John continued his work at the garage, but he noticed a change in himself as well. He felt a sense of pride and purpose that went beyond financial success. Helping Emily had reminded him of why he loved what he did, not just for the repairs, but for the impact he could make on people's lives. Occasionally, Emily would send him sketches from New York, vibrant depictions of her city adventures, each one accompanied by heartfelt messages of gratitude. John displayed these sketches in his shop, feeling a sense of connection despite the distance. The bond between them had transformed from a brief encounter to a lifelong reminder of the power of compassion. Months later, Emily returned to Ohio for a short visit. She wheeled herself into John's shop, now transformed into a small community hub where people could learn about mechanics, art, and life skills. John greeted her with a warm smile, proud to see how far she had come. "Look at you," he said, genuinely impressed. Emily smiled, feeling a mixture of nostalgia and accomplishment. "I've learned so much." "And thanks to you," she replied. Their friendship had grown into a partnership of mutual respect and inspiration. They spent the afternoon talking, laughing, and planning projects that combined their talents: art workshops for local children, mobility advocacy, and charity events. The story of Emily and John soon became more than a local legend. National media picked up their story, showcasing the transformative power of empathy and determination. People across the country were inspired to help strangers, to believe in themselves, and to recognize that even small actions could create ripples of change. Emily and John were invited to speak at schools, charities, and events, spreading their message of hope. Each time they shared their story, they emphasized that the moment that changed everything began with a single act, stopping to help someone in need. It reminded everyone that heroism doesn't always come from wealth or fame. Sometimes it comes from a heart willing to act. In the years that followed, Emily achieved her dream of becoming a professional artist, exhibiting her work in galleries and public spaces throughout New York and beyond. John continued to grow his garage and became a mentor for young mechanics in his community. Their paths remained intertwined, proof that a single moment of kindness could change the course of multiple lives. Emily often said, "He didn't just fix my wheelchair, he fixed the way I saw the world." And John, modest as ever, simply smiled, knowing that the most important repairs aren't always the ones made with tools, but the ones made with heart.